Welcome, folks. It's been a month. I can't believe it. Since our last episode, I had so much fun doing all the podcast episodes for Pride. We chatted with, I think, something like 16 folks. It was absolutely amazing. So today we're going to be switching gears a little bit, going back to more of a regular kind of approach where we've got like a specific topic we're going to talk about. And topic today is one that I've wanted to explore for a little while. And it's not one that, I hear talked about a lot, except in, really limited circles. And that is the intersection of kink and asexuality. Not a topic that I personally have a lot of experience with. And so I'm very excited to learn from Caber and Sleepy Bunny, who are joining us today. So without further ado,
Hello.
Hello.
so just as a reminder, if you don't know, I'm Taiwai, Aero Aspec PhD candidate by day, and Ace and Aero advocate, content creator, co-facilitator of a Ace and Aero support group by night. So that's a little bit about me. And so the Aspec podcast was started back in last summer because I realized that on Twitch there wasn't really a space to talk about, Aspec identity and have, really frank discussions of the challenges that folks in the Aspec community face. And so we started the podcast, and it's been such a pleasure to continue this for a whole year now. So I'm very glad to be back. And I would like to introduce my guests, Caber and Sleepy Bunny. I don't know who wants to go first, but feel free to introduce yourselves.
I feel Cable should go first
Yeah.
because I've been in a couple of episodes, even in the earlier ones. So a couple of people probably know like who I am. So
All
I want to
right.
give like someone who I didn't really see in like the podcast to have a good go first.
All right,
Yeah.
Caber.
Hi, I'm Caber. I am asexual. I'm aromantic. I'm also non-binary, but our pronouns are right there under our names. So they, them, please. And I mean, we're all they, thems here. There's no gender in this chat. And I am a digital artist. I'm a variety VTuber. I mostly play games. And while I'm not I like to talk. I like to learn and I like to talk. And so a lot of my streams are us being silly goofy about games, and then we get sidetracked onto wondering about the ethics of, what if you could own a monster?
Real.
Or what if you were a dragon? Or do dragons count as furries? All of these very thought-provoking conversations that I just kind of ADHD bounce around during my streams.
Oh, lovely.
So
We all have
valid.
ADHD. That's gonna
Yeah.
be lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, all of us have
Hi.
ADHD, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Sleepy Bunny. I am a freelance artist and also a content creator. I'm a bit on hiatus because I need to have my very first PC because my laptop is going to put. But I
Oh
am
no.
also a college student. I'm getting my bachelor's in marine biology. Yippee! I swapped
Ooh.
majors. That's gonna be lovely. And I am a student by day and ADHD odd ADHD fuck, I can't have words right now. Words are hard.
Well, that's so
And
real.
it's so real. I also have a speech disability. That's lovely. Anyway, I also identify as demi-aroace, meaning that I'm demisexual and demi-romantic, and I'm also non-binary, specifically agender. I use they them all pronouns, but usually like I go. Usually people use they them, and I'm fine with it. Yay!
Thank you
Also,
so
I'm the
much
baby of the
for
group.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I've been really excited to talk about this topic. Welcome on in, Oni, Lore, Pseudo Suga. Good to see everyone. Mel, good to see you. How are you doing today? So just to start with a brief reminder of what the split attraction model is, because I think this will have some really important, it's going to be a really important topic to remind folks of here. And so when we're talking about the split attraction model, when it first came out, on Avon, way back in 2001, 2002, it was purely talking about, the idea that romantic attraction and sexual attraction are different orientations, they're different phenomena. One's romantic attraction and one's sexual attraction do not have to match, but it's since been expanded to think about, the fact that there's many different kinds of attraction. And so, some of the ones that, we commonly talk about on the podcast and in the community are aesthetic attraction. So the appreciation of the appearance someone disconnected from sexual or romantic desire or attraction. So you find the person or you find something aesthetically beautiful, but there's no sexual or romantic attraction associated with it. We've got emotional attraction, the desire to get to know someone further. Platonic attraction, as it suggests, it's the desire to be friends with someone. One of my favorite ones to talk about is altruist attraction, and this is often used in the context of queer platonic partnerships, and it describes a form of attraction that's neither purely platonic nor romantic in nature. So if you go back to some of the earlier episodes where we talk about queer platonic relationships, queer platonic partnerships, we talk a lot about altruist attraction. But the one that really will be important for today is sensual attraction, not sexual, but sensual. So this is the desire to interact with others in a tactile but non-sexual way. So sensual refers to a sensory experience. That's where that term comes from. And the way that we interact with the world around us is very sensory oriented. So a sensory experience that might feel good is a sensual experience that we might associate it with sensual attraction. This could be hugging, cuddling, or even massage. But these themselves are not inherently sexual. They're purely a sensory experience. And so we can associate these with sensual attraction. Welcome on in, Effector of Change. Let me give you a shout out as well. All the fruities coming in.
I actually didn't know a lot about like sensual attraction before you actually mention it. So
Yeah,
this is actually very educational for me as well.
absolutely. Yeah, it's
I always learn something on Ty's podcasts.
Real. This is a educational podcast. Like nothing's getting freaky. Trust.
Ty can't help it. Being a PhD candidate is like, I have to educate. I have to teach.
I have to educate. I have to
Yeah.
teach. It is my nature.
I enjoy teaching. It's something I've always wanted to do. And, I've realized that realistically, the chances of me finding a teaching position in academia are slim to none. And so I enjoy teaching in other aspects of my life. And this is one way I can sort of find a way to teach that's not in academia, and I think is really, it's really unique and important.
Yeah, because
you're so real, Lore. You're very real, Lore, because my mom is also a teacher for elementary, and in order for me to get like hours, I sometimes grade like their quizzes, their homework and stuff like that. For some reason, a lot of adults from like my other previous jobs I had, don't know how to write and write worse than a first grader. I feel your pain.
I also despise marking. I remember when I was a sessional lecturer at one of the local colleges back when I was prior to starting my PhD. We used to always joke that we would get, a nice glass of wine and sit down and just crank through the exams marking. Doing it without any wine or beverage could be painful sometimes, so you have to make it a little bit spicier, a little bit more interesting. So we would joke about that a lot. I do not enjoy marking, as you can tell.
You get all of the teaching, and you don't have to mark any papers, and
That
That'd
would
be
be
also
ideal.
glorious.
That would
That'd
be
be so
ideal.
ideal. And also
Yeah,
not
plus
deal
the
with like people that cause problems
yeah, but
in
also
class.
academia is not the most like sitting in a classroom doing a lecture isn't the most accessible. So sometimes it's like I'm sneaking education into your podcast.
Yeah. And also like kudos to people who are teachers, obviously, or educators, obviously, because you are doing a job that no one wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Effector said, there's so many ways that you can teach. Psychoeducation is incredibly important, and it's something that over the years I've come to appreciate more and more. I've come to
May I ask,
realize.
what is psychoeducation? I never heard of that one.
I'll let Effector, maybe explain that one, because they probably have a better explanation than I could ever have for it. Um,
All right, but if I write an essay on this podcast, would you grade me on it?
yeah, it's exactly.
I
So it's knowledge related to
Okay,
our
okay,
psychology, essentially. But it comes up in
okay.
many ways, and in co-facilitation environments, it's very psychoeducational, and so I
Okay, I
engage
get
with
it.
psychoeducation as a co-facilitator at the local Ace and Arrow group, for example, and it's something that I've come to appreciate more and more as I've gotten older, and gone through my own struggles with mental health, and really come to think about what it is that I am looking for. So I think that is really what's driven me into kind of these alt education type environments.
Mm. That's honestly like very fascinating and very educational. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's
Mhm.
something that I personally have not heard of until y'all are literally talking about it right now. So that's the second thing I learned from this podcast.
buckle in. It's a
Absolutely.
it's a knowledge speed run today.
Hell yeah. Let's get on with it. We saw the math.
Yeah. So kink in itself, as we're going to be talking about, is a kind of sensory experience. I don't think that should be any surprise to anyone here. It is therefore a kind of sensual encounter, a way to interact with and create connection with others. So while many folks may associate kink with sex, kink in itself is not inherently sexual. And for aces, it can be a really great way to have a controlled, for some folks, have a controlled sensual experience, in which folks like Megan Sandor, a YouTuber that I mentioned, has a really great YouTube episode around queer platonic partnerships and the intersection with polyamory and altruist attraction. Mentions that for her, it can be far more exciting than sex is. So, cue the garlic bread is better than sex meme here. You know,
I prefer
we,
cake.
yeah, or cake,
Not both.
exactly. Same sort of thing. But it's not for everyone. Evie Lupin, a kink educator who's ace herself, notes that a large number, surprisingly, of the kink educators on YouTube happen to be ace. Do you have any comment or idea why that could be? Any thoughts?
I have a couple of theories. One is that like I see this in a lot of asexuals, but we are more inclined to dive a lot more deeper into sexual attraction or like attractions in general, especially when it comes to kink, sex, or boundary making. So it's not a shock or surprise that someone who is ace is the one who has the most knowledge on sex.
Mm. I
I
feel
can, yeah.
like. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say I completely agree that, as Aspec folks, we're constantly, you know, required to think heavily about different kinds of attraction. And I think as a result, we are, pre-inclined to have these really important discussions, much more so than, most of society. And so I think, as you said, yeah, I mean, it's as a result, we inherently think about these things much more than the average person might.
I feel like it's similar to like I know a lot of autistic people, for example, want to be like actors or they want to work in mental health. And I feel like it's sort of in that same regard, like the world doesn't really teach us all the ways that you could exist, and you grow up kind of like feeling really disconnected and really confused about why things don't fit you and why you're different. And you get treated differently, but nobody explains why. So I feel like some people don't, but I think like a lot of people will hyperanalyze those parts of themselves and like end up with like just a lot of knowledge of a lot of hyper niche knowledge in those subjects because obviously you don't narrow in on it immediately. So you spend a lot of time researching sexuality, be like, why do I feel differently? You spend a lot of time researching like sex and communication and boundaries, be like, why is this not working? Why are there all these like negative feelings? And you end up with like a very large amount of knowledge in those subjects. And then there comes like this drive where it's like, I would like other people to skip the struggle and the pain and the confusion that I had to endure. So I'm gonna educate people so that A-spec people don't have to stumble through what I had to stumble through, and also non-A-spec people can be maybe a little less ignorant and weird about interacting with an A-spec person in these spaces.
So true. So very true. Absolutely great point. And I just want to bring up what Oni mentioned here and just really defining the fact that kink is not sexual, but a fetish is. And a lot of those terms get interchangeably used in broader society, but it's important to make that distinction between kink and fetish in this context.
Hmm.
Hmm, hmm.
So kind of building on this a little bit, what is your relationship kink and what drew you into it in the first place?
Actually, I'm gonna have Kaber go first since I went first after
Yeah,
beforehand.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I think my relationship with kink is like pretty like closed off. Of just like I don't have an offline community to engage with. I know like for kink is as much a community and like a culture, as it is just like an activity to engage in. And I think largely it flourished and it grew through offline communities, through people actually engaging, going to clubs, having meetups and things like that. I didn't have that. So I've done it. I've dabbled. And I've done a lot of research because you can't really choose your special interests. And my brain latched onto this pretty hard. Um, but I also know, even with the research that I've done, I've barely scratched the surface. And I don't know what like originally pulled it to me. Like I don't have like one key, like this is the moment where I saw someone in leather and I went awooga. Um, but I think it was like a gradual steering direction because like as a teenager, I loved anime, I loved manga, especially like romance was my favorite genre, and I found my way to boys love or yaoi, and like kink elements are very very common in like yaoi fiction. Um, Not in the best way, but it's there very frequently. It touches on like dominant and submissive dynamics. It touches on like restraint. It sometimes glorifies not having consent. And so it's sort of it's not what you would use to learn about kink, but it is kind of entrenched in almost every single story that I read. Um, like just the basis of it, the very common structure of like one massive, super tall, dominating top, and this little tiny whisper of like a submissive bottom. Um, and I think that translated just because that was a lot of the content that I consumed. It translated into my understanding of love and intimacy. Um, and then as I grew up, I wanted to understand it in a healthier way, and not kind of glorify the not the healthiest dynamics that I'd been consuming. Um, so it went from like this stuff, and then there's always like fandom discourse online, which isn't always the greatest. But I at least found on my little nest on Tumblr, people had really, really interesting, thought-provoking like critiques of these tropes and dynamics. Um, that got me thinking. I'm gonna bring it up a lot, but also being autistic is a very big part of my life. Is that I have a very strong sense of my own justice. So like I like to know what the rules are. I like to follow the rules, and I want to know what's right and wrong because I like to do what is right. And that's not always well, it ain't binary, but I try to. That's the way my brain is wired. Like I want to do what's right. So I would see these like critiques and be like, "Hey, this is unhealthy," or maybe this shouldn't be glorified, or "Hey, this is actually really unsafe. You can't you shouldn't really be using like one thing of spit if you're going to be doing penetrative anal. That's not healthy and it will hurt. Don't do it." So it was all these things where it's like, okay, so this is bad education, not that's supposed to be education. um and then I just pursued how to do it safely and correct, and followed that through YouTube educators.
Very good
I'm not
point.
gonna lie. I, I'm not gonna lie. I also got like I also got into like the interest because of Yaoi too. Oh my
Why was it
god.
our gateway?
Like if anyone from like 2015 to 2016 know a Nemo, there is a Nemo called Yaoi Worshippers. I'm calling myself out here right now, and like I got all of my not knowledge but more or less like I got drew into it because of Yaoi. um and honestly there was like the semi okay, but specifically there was something called the BDSM test, which if anyone who's
Yup.
been I know like if like anyone who would know who has not been living under a rock that's been on the internet, there is something called the BDSM test, and it was on that email. So little 15-year-old me was like, oh, what is this? So
Oh
honestly,
no.
yeah, it's
It's like this extensive ass test, and then I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, it like grades you on like a
yes,
percentile of like
yes.
how much you are of certain kinks. So you'll do the whole test, and then at the very end it'll be like you are 97% rope bunny, you are 50% dominant, and like it just breaks it all down.
Yeah, and they also have like a more info tab on there as well, so you know what it means.
Yeah, they'll
So I
explain the
was like,
terms.
yeah, it'll explain the terms. I was like, oh, okay, because I did the semi-okay test beforehand, so I'm like, okay, it's something similar. and
Hmm.
and it got to like my descent and like, okay, what is this? Like, this seems very interesting. This seems like something that I will I'll actually like want to learn more because it's new. I'm a very very curious person. Curiosity killed the cat, and satisfaction may have brought it back. That is basically my embodiment of it.
Yep.
So, um, So I went down a rabbit hole. I forgot like there was two people that like I had that had videos on like being ace and being kink or being demisexual and being into kink or sex. So I forgot their names, but I'm pretty sure I have them in a playlist. I'll definitely search for while people are talking and yapping. But that is my introduction into it. Unfortunately, I don't have like a lot of like experience. I have no experience when it comes to like IRL stuff because I'm a very like good person. Like I'm here like maybe no, maybe not now. Like it's gonna be like a hard no for me, dog. But when it comes to
Mhm.
online, I only have like two-ish experience, one in relationship and one not, and both of them weren't really that great because people weren't respecting boundaries. So yeah, that's the TLDR on that. But so far, it's just education on my end, like research and more matter, like actually matter of factly on that word technical terms.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it is.
I do remember both Evie Lupine and Megan Sandor mentioning something along a similar lines. Basically, that for them it was more of an intellectual curiosity or like almost an academic approach that brought them into it. It's like, there's something interesting about this. Let's explore this. But for them, it's very much like an academic, intellectual curiosity that drew them in the first place rather than something else. So it was like almost a detached relationship with it.
Yeah, I resonate with that. I do think it wasn't necessary. Like there was some degree of like a desire to do these things. But I think largely what like spurred my interest in it so strongly was just like seeing how, in general, just how bad sexual education is in the world. Um, and seeing how people were, and even I did as a youth, I would read, I didn't, if there's no sexual education and all my engagement with sex is through fiction, so like erotica, and comics, then that's my only perception of, okay, so this is how this works. And that's not good if it's not healthy or if it's teaching you things. Like it's in regardless of sexuality, it's extremely common to act like bleeding during is normal, and it's super not. It's super not, and you
It's
shouldn't
not.
be. But
You
it's
should go to
so
the
so so
ER.
common. Yeah. And sometimes it's not always it depends how much. But like
Yeah.
it's super not, but it's super normalized in that fiction as something like, oh, they're a virgin and it just happens when you're a virgin. It shouldn't ever, even if you're a virgin, it shouldn't be bleeding. It shouldn't hurt. But it's so, so common in fiction where it's like your first time's supposed to hurt and it's supposed to bleed because it's just you're breaking, you're breaking the hymen, which also no. So
No.
it frustrates me so immensely how badly things are taught and the impact that has on people who don't have access to the correct information. Um, as well as like we can kind of see the end game of it now where like obviously there's more branches, but poor sex education bleeds into a lot of bigotry and oppression in the world where it can bleed into people's homophobia and transphobia, or you can see like the demonization of furries where everyone thinks that furries, not everyone, but like there's a very loud group who think that furries are that it's all sexual and that it is all a what's it called? It's they think that it's all just like a sexual deviancy. And like sure, some furries are horny about it, but it's not all of them. That some people just want to wear mascot costumes. Or like reproductive rights. So it bleeds into like, hey, this isn't being educated very well. And that poor education is leading into larger aspects of systemic injustice.
Yeah, and I'll also piggyback on that as well because like when it comes to like sex, especially for the hymen is very easy to break, and a lot of people break it just by like putting a tampon in. So
Hmm.
like there's a lot of like a lot of like some stuff wrong when it comes to the human body as well. And also I did link in our chat, there's a webtoon called Boo It's Sex, which basically it goes into like a couple of girls move into a sorority house, and they meet the sorority girl that is a ghost, and she teaches all about sex. There's a really good educational webtoon. There's an asexual character in there as well, and it's written and done really well. There's another one which the dude is called the YouTube is called What's That Safe Word? The dude actually had a video which talks about like his how he found out he was demisexual and what it means for him in a sexual light, especially when he himself was a sex worker.
I wanted to at some point talk about, because I love What's the Safe Word. I love AMP. Because he has a whole channel on just sexual education and kink education. And it's like been going for a long time. And he'll like gamify it sometimes. And he yeah, he is demisexual. And yeah, he is a sex worker, and so there's just like a wealth of information on kink from like someone who's on Aspec, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the other person was Evie Lupin when I was researching this one a couple of years ago as well. So I also advocate, I've seen her videos as well, and it's highly educational. She talked about like what to do to vet someone if you're going into a power dynamic, all that good junk,
Mhm.
and what to look out for in a like in a relationship when it comes to like kink.
I've linked a few of these resources in the chat there. Evie Lupin's channel, Megan Sandor, What's the Safe Word, Boo It Sex Webtoon, just linked them all in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing those, by the way. Really good to be able to share these resources. And for those watching the VOD, I have linked the information in the video below, so go into the description and check that out.
And also the like circling back, just because I saw people talking about the hymen situation, which is they're designed to break because it's just it's like a film, it's just like a little like sheet, and the whole purpose of like that system is that things need to exit it. You know, when you get your period, that lining needs to exit. So it's not like like people are like, oh, it's broken. That means you've had sex. That means you're worthless. Like that, all
It
garbage.
means you're a
It's
whore.
designed. It's designed to break because things need to exit it. Things need to leave.
Absolutely.
So once you start, like, I'm pretty sure, like, once you get your period, it's going to break. It's going to open because things need to exit that area.
Absolutely. And I find it funny because like I think back in the old days, I forgot it was like the 1800s or 1700s, they basically like said like, "Oh, you need to like it's gonna be blood when you break the hymen. So like when you get married, if you don't see blood, that means she's worthless or like a whore or something like that." So how women got around it is that they had like their marital like intercourse while they're on their period to prove that the hymen broke.
Mm.
That's
And
a
think of
little
all the
tidbit of
people you could
history.
spare actually teaching proper education on things.
Absolutely. Like I like because the reason why I research sexual education and I love like body autonomy is because honestly it's my hyperfixation. I find it fascinating. But
Hmm.
also like this is the stuff that is not really taught in school. I'm not
Hmm.
really sure how it was taught like during like time of school, your time of school, but my schooling
Terribly.
is from like 2010s that this I've been taught this in around the 2010s, and all of it was basically like how babies were made, how the period works, and like STDs, and that was just about it. There's nothing about the hymen, there's nothing about boundaries, no nothing, just like hey,
Yeah.
slap a rubber on it
Mm-hmm.
and don't get pregnant.
That's more or less they basically very basics, and then they separated mask presenting folks and femme presenting folks into separate groups and basically talked about a few things, and it was very poorly done. mind you, I'm going back to like, the early 2000s, so I don't think there's any surprises there. Even, in Canada here, sex education has been done absolutely abysmally for years. So none of
Yeah.
this was ever talked about.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Like it for me, like I guess I'm just thankful that my school didn't go the abstinence route because I know a lot of people are like, all right, don't have sex or you'll get sick and die, or you'll go to hell. At least we didn't. I didn't have that. My experience was like they didn't separate us, thankfully. Um, but it was very bare bones of just like, all right, here's how you put on a condom. I mean, they did explain dental dams, so there was at least some interesting stuff there. But I think I got better sexual education through I was part of my school's GSA or Gay Straight Alliance. And sometimes we would go to like queer conferences and they would have panels and then I got better sexual education through that.
Oh, same here. Boo at Sex actually was my first actually proper educational thing that I've ever seen. When it comes to that, we didn't get for sex education we did not get like grouped out of like female or male. I think I'm not sure if they like if it stopped that in like the early 2010s. I'm not really particularly sure, or it's just like my middle school was not like that. But it was during high school when I first found out that I was most likely asexual that I started researching and started reading Buddhist Sex. And
Mhm.
then like Evie, then like what's that safe word came into play and I got and that's how I was able to like actually rework the sex education that I had in middle school. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought, sex education has been absolutely abysmal, and I'm so glad that there are resources out there and folks that have devoted their entire channels to talking about this sort of stuff that just never gets talked about, but absolutely needs to be talked about. So, it's so unfortunate that it has to basically be hidden by political groups and political interest groups. Yet this stuff is so vital and incredibly important to talk about. Yeah.
And I do have like a couple of theories about that. The one of the main ones is just it's just like religion or it does not
Hmm.
fit into their point of view.
Hmm.
That is like, oh, you're learning something that I didn't know. Like that's just basically it. It's all about like having it's all about control,
Always.
power, and always trying to feel better than like the
Yeah.
other person.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Always comes down to
It's very
control
simple.
and power.
Yeah.
It,
Well,
it's
like
so
even
simple.
the translation of what we're seeing now, where like with the removal of like reproductive rights in a lot of ways, like I f- I have personal conspiracy theories about how it is largely about controlling women, but also about like there's like this surge of people complaining where it's like women have too high standards and now like men are going to be alone because women just want to be alone, and there's a part of me that wonders if like this pushing like it's it's enabled by the lack of people's sexual education and understanding of these things, but it also I think is a two part of a lot of people if they get pregnant and they can't abort it, um, they are going to stay with someone who might not be the healthiest for them because being a single parent, especially when the economy is rancid, is not possible. Or people are going to be so concerned of like, I don't want to traumatize a kid by breaking up a family, so I'll try to make it work with. So in a degree, it's kind of locking someone in and controlling people of like if as long as I if I get them pregnant, then they won't leave me and they'll endure a lot more harsh treatment because they're trying to stick around for the kid, as well as like largely the adoption industry is a for-profit business, so you get the combo
100%.
of locking women down with mediocre men, or terrible men who don't want to be better, um, And in addition, it's like, okay, if they have kids that they can't take care of, then you get to sell them for a profit. And it's fucked.
Capitalism, my favorite cereal today. Because like it's not really that hard. Like a lot, especially when a lot of men they blame it on looks. But what I see, especially when we came to the hear me outs, that women will absolutely go for the trash can monster as long as it has a good personality.
Yup.
Yup. Straight up. Like you can say that I'm wrong, but the women hear me out versus the men hear me out versus the like everyone in between hear me outs. The most basic and stale hear me outs that I hear from is from men.
I've seen a hear me out where it's that like grizzled angelfish from like Finding Nemo with a scar on his face. That was
Honestly, so
someone's
real
hear
for
me
that.
out.
Well, it's my
Because
hear
they're
me
just
out
like,
too.
oh, I love his personality, I love his voice. And I'm just like, you know what? Get it.
That's also my hear me out. like he's good with kids, like
He's a good man, he treat you right.
yeah,
He might be a
exactly.
fish, but it's the reverse. If you would love me if I was a worm, would you love me if I was the Finding Nemo fish?
like it's been just from time and time again. And also the bear situation, a lot of people were pressed. A lot of men were pressed about that. That like, why would she choose the bear? Honestly, the bear will actually like decide to maul me and actually be straightforward with it.
Yeah, it's just like you know what you're getting into with a bear. It's not going to
Yeah.
be pleasant, but it's not like it's going to draw it out either. It's going to either kill you because it's territorial or it's going to eat you because it's hungry. And you kind of know what you're getting into. Um,
Hey man, I much rather be food for a bear than a man.
Also, what Duke asked, why is it called Gay Straight Alliance? I think it's just that it was originally built as like a joining point of
Mhm.
like a meeting or a group where straight people and queer people could come together and meet up, because that group was also very open to, like, it wasn't just like, oh, this is a queer group. It was just a group for um queer people and allies to meet up together with like the central, I think, focus of queer education.
Mhm.
Yeah, and later on, or in my when I used to go to community college, right now I'm in uni, we called it the Gender Sexuality Alliance. So it had like a more broader scope for people
Oh,
of like every sexuality or every gender can come join.
cool.
Absolutely. And I think, when, the first, GSAs were, first appearing, anybody outside the queer, community wouldn't necessarily have the language to understand much beyond the basic, gay and lesbian. And so I think that term was used as a more, I guess, because it was more understandable to folks outside the community. Would you
Mhm.
say it was used as a catch-all term or?
I feel like it is.
Yeah,
Then like later on when like people got to know a little bit more about like sexuality and became more accepted,
yeah.
some like it's well personally with my the community college I used to go to, they call it the Gender Sexuality Alliance because everyone knew a little bit more than gay and lesbian.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes complete sense. But yeah, I mean, when I was in, high school, certainly not there wasn't a lot of talk outside of queer circles beyond much beyond, gay and lesbian and those, those sexualities. There wasn't talk of non-binary. There absolutely was no talk of asexuality. So I think, if you're talking to the broader society, those are terms that, especially in the early 2000s, people are going to more likely understand, I think, was the idea.
Mhm.
And thank you
And
so
I
much
think
for, going into, a lot about, the absolutely abysmal sex education and the problems that this creates, because it is not talked about enough. And so I thank you very much for, talking about that and discussing it for sure, because it needs to be talked about.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I have been like the been or like seen or been through the consequences of like lack of sexual education, especially when it comes to boundaries. A lot of people don't understand boundaries, or they do and get pressed when someone decides to say like, "Hey, this is my boundary," and you accidentally or try to go through it and say like, "Hey, no, we're not doing this," and you get pressed because like, "Wow, this person didn't let me do what I wanted to do." It's like, out of here with that.
Yeah. Where people either they have like this a surface level understanding of boundaries, and so they try to like, but not enough to understand like some boundaries you don't push. Like there's a lot of people who will post online and be like, I want someone with no limits, no boundaries, total control, no safe words. And they glorify that like that's real kink. That's real submission, is that you don't have any limits. And that's extremely dangerous.
That's
And very
Absolutely. That's
bad.
disgusting.
scary. That's scary. I'm going the other direction. You can have fun with that. No,
So you get
no.
like, 26-year-olds hunting or like older, hunting for like fresh 18-year-olds
Oh,
who
absolutely.
are just like, hey, I'll teach you all about, especially if it's like a Dom sub situation where it's like, oh, I'm the Dom and I'm going to teach you everything about kink. Don't worry about it. And then you get that like abusive ass 50 Shades of Grey dynamic where it's just like, hey, I know that you don't know anything about this kink and I'm not going to tell you about it. We're going to do it in the moment and traumatize you. Um, and that's
Yeah,
supposed to be healthy and we're in love slash sarcasm.
yeah, like for real, there's a very, very recent thing that came to my attention that happened around like people that I knew, and for some reason I don't know. If I had every nickel of a 30-something-year-old trying to prey on like freshly 18 or 19-year-olds, I would probably have like at least 3 to 4 nickels. Which is weird that it's so little, but it's absolutely abysmal that happened. Like that
Yeah,
happened like
still too
a
many
couple of
times.
times. It's still a little bit too many times. Like once or none is enough for me. Like and I find it baffling, but also it makes sense because it goes back into control and power. It's like I cannot control people of my age or a little bit lower because they know a bit more and know what they're looking for, so I can't manipulate them a lot more easier than a freshly 18, 19-year-old who don't know shit.
Mhm. Especially because when someone's really young, like they want to learn, right? Like I
Yeah, they
think
want to learn.
when you, there's like a
They
hunger
want
for
to be an
knowledge that
adult.
hasn't been crushed or burned out yet. So it's just as opposed to someone who's 30 who's like, I'm fucking no, I'm not interested. I'm not doing that. I'm here to do what I want to do. Like maybe they'll, but they're less likely to explore things that are uncomfortable or scary because they're like, I've been scared enough in my life. I'm tired. I'm stressed out. We're doing what I want, and that's it. Whereas like someone really young is like, oh, I've never heard of that before. I'm kind of scared. But I also think a lot of like really young people feel invincible. So they're gonna do more dangerous things because they're like, fuck it. Um, and I
Yeah,
think that is appealing to someone who wants to make someone do things that they might not normally be into. Is like, okay, well, this 30-year-old doesn't want to do my kink, but the 18-year-olds, they're willing to try it at least, and I can just burn through them to get what I want.
yeah, which is unfortunate. Like, I'm not gonna lie that like my curiosity has been taken advantage of from time to time because I'm a very curious person in nature.
Hmm.
I'm literally my family calls my experience concoctions, if to give like a certain like context. So like even though like I've not been like taken advantage of in like that type of context, I have my curiosity has been taken advantage of in certain aspects, either in sexual relations or in romantic relations. So it is a thing that people need to watch out for.
I feel like Bloodstain is also saying some like really good words in chat about how like vanilla, like people make a lot of jokes, but like vanilla sex is seen as like really boring, really bad, where it's like, oh, like someone will be like, "Oh, I'm into hair pulling." And then it's just like, "Oh my gosh, you're so vanilla, you're so basic. Like, look at all of these, I'm into bloodletting and I'm into this and I'm a real kinkster." Like this superiority that gets established where it shames non-violent or non-extreme sex.
Which is honestly very weird to me. Like, yeah, I've been desensitized, so like something like, for example, like hair pulling might not be like, that's not really that kinky, and that's just like the desensitization of it all. But
Hmm.
like everyone has like a certain kink or a fetish that they like, no matter
Hmm.
how like kinky or like how vanilla it is. And there's nothing wrong with vanilla sex either. Like sometimes you just don't want to deal with all of that, and you just want to like do the normal shit.
Yeah, you just want to feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a
And
really good
also,
point. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
also blood, I definitely do agree because like there's a lot of people and this comes into like the recent event that like was let known that like the person did did like trick a lot of people into getting into a dom sub dynamic. That was a thing. So I
Yeah,
do agree.
there's that imbalance of like it, because some people may like, I'm not susceptible to peer pressure, but all of the like peer pressure PSAs are like someone literally going up to you being like, "Hey, have a cigarette," and they're like, "No, I don't want to." And it's like, "Have a cigarette or you're a loser," and it's like that's not how peer
That's
pressure
not how
actually
it
works.
works. I'm sorry,
It's
Dare, but
peer
that's not
pressure
how
has
it
ended up
works.
being like, okay, I'm out with my friends, and I can't drive, and they were my ride here, um, and now everyone is drinking, and I don't want to embarrass them, or everyone's doing this, or they're soliciting making out or sex from me, and now there's a concern that if I say no, they might get upset. Maybe they won't drive me home. Maybe they'll go and hook up with someone else. So it's that more tangible kind of pressure of, if I don't do what they're asking me to do, or if I don't flex my boundaries, that they're going to lose interest, or they're going to, leave me stranded at this party, or I'm not going to seem adult enough for them.
Yeah, and that is realistic peer pressure. And my advice is to just because like a lot of peer pressure is just like taking yourself and putting it into digestible bits. Make them choke.
Hmm.
Just try to make them choke because like you don't need to like put yourself into bite-sized pieces. If they don't like how big your paws, then they can just go to someone else. Like, yeah, it might suck, but you probably have dodged like a really like huge nuke.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, some really good, really, really good points, both by you and Bunny, as well as BSW around, what actually is peer pressure and what are the dangerous scenarios in which these things happen. And as you said, it's mostly the PSAs are, you know, don't give in to peer pressure around smoking. But in reality, it could be that you're at a party, your only way home is, the folks that you got the ride with, and they're either hotboxing the car or doing something, taking illicit substances, and you've got no other choice but to, that's your only way out of the party essentially. But nobody ever talks about that, and it can create really, really dangerous scenarios. 'Cause
And
yeah,
also, a good advice is also having a second plan.
yeah,
Like, if for example, if they're hotboxing the car or they drink and you say no and they leave, you should also have a backup like an Uber or your mom like or your parent taking you home. You should always have a second or third plan if one of them falls through.
exactly. And it can be really tough if like my community, transit stops running at 11:59 p.m. and there is no way to get home other than Uber. If you're out past, you're out at a late night party, and your ride back is not is too dangerous to take. So it can create really dangerous scenarios, as BSW mentioned, walking home in the middle of night for 15 kilometers, in some really sketchy places, but you don't
Yeah.
necessarily think about these things when you're, in your teens. And nobody
Mhm.
talks about this in the PSAs.
No, it's very like unrealistic of just straight up like someone being like, "Hey, come on, take it, take it." And then like the PSA is just like, "No, I'm not going to do that because I care about my health." And then they walk away all triumphant, or everyone just kind of like is like, "Oh, I guess I've seen the air." Like it's a completely unrealistic
It's
idea of
very
how to grapple
unrealistic.
with. And I think obviously um there probably aren't a terrible amount of preteens listening to this. So for like advice towards an adult perspective who've already kind of been through it is just make sure you always have open communication with your kids and don't punish them for like I haven't experienced this too much, but I know like in my family, um one of my siblings went through was far more rebellious, did a lot more dangerous things than I did. Um and the takeaway my parents had and the way my parents treated it was that they just kind of were like angry and upset at my sibling for like breaking their trust and lying to them even though some like bad things happened to my sibling. Um and so I think it's very important that if these scenarios, I hope they never do, but if they ever do happen, that you don't punish the child for experiencing trauma, and keep a communication gateway always open where it's like, no, like you're not gonna be happy about it, but letting them know if it's 3 a.m., if it's 5 a.m., if you snuck out, if you, I don't care, if you need a ride home, you can call me. Like just making sure your kid always has that gateway so that way it can at least mitigate the chances of them being like, well, I'm 2 cities away. I took a ride with this older guy. He's my ride. I'm stranded here. I can't walk home. You know, I don't have money for an Uber. Um, like especially if they have to juggle secrecy with the parents, because like some parents might, if it's like, oh, my 13-year-old has an Uber account, it might be like it's linked to my credit card, so they might feel like, well, I can't Uber home because then my mom will know that I'm 2 cities away and she'll get mad at me. So from an adult perspective, how you can kind of help mitigate that for future generations is just it sucks to wake up at 5 a.m. and go drive for an hour and a half. You're not gonna be happy about it, but you kind of have to conceal those frustrations so that you always are a lifeline to people connected to you.
Heavy
Absolutely.
on that. Absolutely heavy on the communication. And also I will also say like even if the kid does not trust you or like feel like is nervous around because like everyone's gonna be nervous around their parents no matter what, as long saying hey, as long as you have a trusted peer that absolutely like has your best interest, like I'm talking like this person will actually go through it and also like is very like trusted and actually a really good person, you can go to them as well as long as it's a trusted peer that is not shitty. Like obviously like my advice is very broad, but as long as like the person or like you or your child have like a trusted person that is good. I'm not good with words right now.
Yeah,
The
but like, yeah,
words
it doesn't
the
have to be
words
a
are
parent. It
blatant.
could
Yeah.
be,
Hmm.
yeah, it could just be maybe you have, if you're 15 and you have a 17-year-old friend who has a car that you can call up and be like, hey, I need help. Or if you have an aunt or uncle, or like, you could have like, it doesn't have to necessarily just be parents, but it is always good to have somebody who in a crisis you can you can call to like get you out of a jam.
Absolutely.
Some really, really, really good points. We were talking about it from a kink perspective, but this, initially, but this is just for any situation. It's a really good point because I know that growing up, I had really strict parents, and they basically said you have a curfew at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. on weekends, and if you don't make it home, then you'll be in huge trouble. And that sort of approach is extremely dangerous because teenagers are going to want to push boundaries. They're going to want to go hang with their friends who have got, the cool things, the cool toys. And that's going to create a really dangerous situation where you don't feel that you can actually own up and be like, hey, I screwed up, I need help. Because you're going to be extremely fearful of the consequences. What you should instead have is somebody that, as you said, is willing to come out and bail you out, and then, maybe after the situation has occurred and you're back home safe, the next day you can have the tempers have dropped a little bit, have a discussion about, what went wrong, how can you prevent this in the future.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's really true that strict parents make sneaky kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like some people are like, I'm gonna be a really strict parent. I'm gonna be a real hard ass because that'll make a good kid. And it's like that's gonna make a kid that's scared of you and good at lying. It's not gonna make a kid that actually. It's not gonna make a person that follows the rules. It's gonna be someone who will like around you say the right things and is going to act up with no life net because they don't think anyone will treat them kindly if they tell the truth. And there's varying degrees because like that does suck to be like, oh, your curfew is 9:30 and you're gonna get punished. There's also some people who think because they're like, oh, they'll learn consequences where if they try to come home late at night, some people are like, I'll lock the door. Like, not me. Some people will say, if you don't come home by your curfew, I'm locking the door and you're just going to be out at night. I've known friends who were like, well, they're like messaging me on their phone when I was younger and then be like, well, I'm locked out of my house for tonight. So I'm just kind of wandering the street until morning when I can get in. And some people, I think some parents think like, oh, that'll teach them. They'll come home on their curfew next time because otherwise they're out on the street. But it's like they won't.
No,
People forget things all the time or they want to hang out with their friends. And it's like
absolutely.
the more
Yeah, and that's even more dangerous than being
Mhm.
inside as well.
Absolutely. I mean, what the heck? What what world is it safe to have somebody locked outside of their house when they're, a teen because you want to teach them a lesson? In what world is that A, logical, and B, safe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But a
this
lot of
place
people do
has
it.
don't a lot of people don't have common sense. It's not like common sense should be a thing that should be recurring, but it's actually not. I love how we just like delegated, like we technically like went the well, technically it's technically still on topic because like this also applies to a lot of sex and kink,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mhm.
also we just went all up and more broad.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I've snoozed the ads like 3 times at this point, and we're going to be
Oh,
heading up
sorry.
against
Yeah.
an ad break. So we will have to unfortunately go on a quick break here because I don't want folks to miss out on the conversation. So this is supposedly about, kink, but we're talking about boundaries and having a safe plan. And we talked about just the many, many problems that parents create when they're really strict and don't allow for, their kids to say, hey, look, I screwed up. I need you to come bail me out.
Which
Exactly.
also does go into kink and BSM as well,
Yeah,
because all these can be applied to those situations. Because
absolutely.
what if you're freshly 18 and you go out somewhere and now you're stuck or
Hmm.
being peer pressured, and a lot of like the problems does stem from parents as well.
Definitely. Unfortunately, we gotta jump to ad break here, so
We gotta go
apologies.
ad break.
We're gonna go back. We're gonna see
No.
an Asexuality.
So we'll see you on the other side. I'm sorry to cut off this really important discussion, but we're gonna get ads here. So see you on the other side. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for sticking around through the ad break. That is a really, really good question, and I don't think we actually did talk about what kink is, Duke. So, maybe we start with just a brief definition of, what is kink so that everybody's kind of on the same page here. Because I don't actually know myself, what a textbook classic definition would be of it.
I feel like there's a mix, because like even if you look it up online, it mixes it up where it's like, it's sexual practices, or it is sexual like behaviors or interests. Like sometimes, as we said before, kink and fetish can be like blended together in their definitions and like mixed up for each other. But I think like I guess repeated understanding of it is that it is like a non-conventional behavior or desire or activity. Um, Activities for like different fantasies that people have that don't have to be sexual. They are very often sexual. But I think it's more so just like a kink can just be any kind of unconventional, untraditional interest or activity.
Very true. And, getting into that, the fact that it's a sensual sensory experience that's unconventional as well.
Yeah, I agree. You said it a lot more better than I would ever would.
Thank you.
We should actually like go like get to like I think number 5. I don't think
Yeah.
we went to number 5. Yeah.
I don't think we did 4 either.
No.
Did we? We derailed so hard.
We got on a tangent. We have a lot of things to say.
Well, I mean, like a lot of things that we said can be applied to kink.
Yeah.
Yes. So, is it truly derailing?
No, I don't think so. And I mean, I designed these podcasts so that there's room for open discussion around these. These are kind of suggestions, and then we allow the discussion to flow where it needs to go. So
Sweet, because like I have a horrible habit of derailing a lot. So I'm here like, no, I derailed it. No.
No. We were still on topic. It was still a good combo.
Really, really important discussions that need to be had. So I'm glad we had them. Kind of thinking about, kink in the context of Aspec spaces. Are there any kinks that you know of or can think of that might have a particularly high proportion of Aspec community members engaging in them?
I do see a lot of people be into like rope play. There's a Japanese art on it of it called Shimbari. I think I pronounced it right or said it right. And it's just an art of like rope binding. And even though rope binding can be someone's kink, both sensual and sexual, it is also an art form.
Yeah. There's that. I know, like, I would argue that being into monsters, a monster fucker, if you will, I would consider that a kink. And I know personally a lot of Aspec people who are very into monsters.
Guilty.
Where it's like almost like wanting to engage with like the bodily need or desire for intimacy, but without like the attachment to like the not the brain translating it to an actual human or a person. So like there's people who are in just like things that are so fictional that like your brain cannot translate them to real life experiences and real life people. So I see a lot of Aspec people that are very into monsters.
I do agree, but that also explains why I'm very into Nanami being a really good husband material.
The amount of people that I've seen being like, I just want the xenomorph to be a good wife to me. And I'm like, I love that for you, maybe.
If you don't mind, like, is the xenomorph is the one where like the kids just like burst out of the chest or something?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a
Yeah, it's the
damn.
alien that like with like the long tail and the like inner mouth in the mouth.
Yeah. Like that one. I was like,
Mhm.
dang, like a good wife, but you will be like the best like person birther. I don't know.
But there are kinks that like I mean a lot of kinks that aren't explicitly sexual, like, rope work like Bunny said, or like I think a lot of people think that puppy play is always sexual when it's not. Um some
Yeah, a
people
lot
just
of
want to
animal
put on
play.
yeah, a lot of animal play. They just want it. Sometimes people just want to roll around and like crawl around on all fours and like cuddle and like just act more animalistic and go, just they just don't want to talk. Um, or there's a kink with like electroshock where some people just want to like, there's doesn't have to be any penetration to it. There doesn't have to be any like stimulation in that regard. It could just be like you have a little electro wand and you just zap somebody for like 30 minutes and then that's the whole scene. Um
Personally, I don't like Zappy. No Zappy.
yeah.
And I was like, I get zapped by just simply like being near metal. Like yesterday at work, I literally was just trying to touch like the shelf, and the shelf zapped me. Like I get
Yep.
zapped
I
by my
wonder,
car. I
do
get
you
zapped
think
by
that
my car.
people do you think people who are into electro and they are just so excited anytime they get a static shock where they're just like, "Ooh, a little treat today."
They can take all the static shocks I be getting because it's always on random. Like I always get shot by the doorknob, the door to my car, a shelf. Like I even get shocked by my own cat
Oh dear.
in my clothes.
It's usually
Please.
worse in the winter because of the low humidity and low dew points.
Yep.
Oh, when I mean I'm electrifying.
It's like people who like electro live life on the edge and they don't put a dryer sheet in the dryer because they want the laundry to crinkle and static them.
Like, what else? Let's see. Because I think like leashing is also in like puppy play as well. There's a lot of
Hmm.
people that want to be just put on a leash,
Yeah.
straight up. Like I like chokers,
Ooh.
but I don't think I can go that far for a leash.
Yeah, sometimes it's just fashion. I think a lot of kink stuff gets translated into fashion and like a lot of harnesses. Harnesses are kink gear, but it has been very translated into everyday fashion. Um, or like I don't know specifically the overlap of like Aspec people in that particular kink, but there's, just wearing leather is a kink. Wearing latex is a kink. Um,
I could
and so
never
like
because like I'll get so sweaty.
oh my god, I cannot imagine the soupiness of someone, especially like there's like full latex bodysuits or like latex boots where I'm like, are you just squish squashing around in like a little puddle in your
That's
shoes?
I will feel so gross. Like I want to take this off.
Especially in
It
Especially when
looks,
summer.
I live in
especially
a
in the summer,
very,
yeah.
very, very, very humid state that is humid 24/7, 365 days of the year. I could never. No. I'll just be human soup.
I
Yep,
struggle
it's so
enough with
beautiful.
humidity here, and we only
Mm.
deal with it marginally. And for a couple months of the year, I could never live, further south where humidity is like a 8 month of the year kind of issue.
Oh god, yeah. Ugh.
Like you turn to soup. To soup. You'll be in the
Mhm.
soup store. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
why you're buying
feel
clothes at the soup store.
All I can think of now is the anime
yep.
reference.
Why are you buying clothes at the soup store? Fuck you!
Also, Oni's right. Boot blacking is also a kink where
Yeah.
it's literally just treating leather,
Hmm.
shining up boots. And it can be used as a sexual scene, but some people's jobs are they're straight up just a boot blacker or a boot black, I think. Where they just shine up people's shoes.
I thought that was a thing that like ended in like the 90s to 80s. I didn't know it was a still thing.
Mhm. It's less common. A lot of older kink practices aren't as common, but they still happen. It's just you're not really gonna hear about it's I think the translation of like a lot of the kink culture isn't online, especially when you have a growing amount of like censorship around anything even remotely sexual, or even things that aren't sexual. But just there's a fundamental societal misunderstanding for it. A lot of kink culture is in person, it is offline, and you aren't really gonna see a lot of those unless either you see someone's channel who has a lot of content and eventually gets around to talking about it, or you engage in an offline kink community, and then you can kind of see all of these practices that have carried over through time.
Absolutely.
And they say Twitch streamers aren't educational.
I've always found, the educational discussions and, discussions on things that I'm not knowledgeable about to be really interesting, and that's what draws me into many channels in the first place. But that's just sort of my take, and coming very much from a academic perspective, that's interesting to me. But not all
Mhm.
Twitch is
I,
gaming, is what I mean to say.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
even we brought up before, what's the safe word? Amp. He has a Twitch channel, which he games on. But he also does AMAs, and he
Hmm.
will just field questions if people want to talk about kink related topics, while he's playing Dead by Daylight.
Hell
It's
yeah.
like hell yeah, like for personally for me, like I mainly do art and I do get a good chunk of art questions as well. And this is also like it's very prominent in the art community when we do get questions. Some people don't want to get questions and some people don't mind them. And when I want the people and I'll actually like stop what I'm doing just to explain like, oh yeah, this is what is this? And it actually derives from this. And then originally is this like for in an art sense. So it's like I would say like I'm educational. That's not the final definition.
Yep.
Education comes in many different forms. It doesn't have to be a lecture at all,
Mhm.
and I think some of the best education actually is not in a lecture. A lecture is very one way, it's not interactive, and many folks don't, you know, find that the best medium in which they can learn. So I think the interactive, um, non-lecture based education is actually some of the best ways to learn personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but I think a lot of education I've gotten has been through media, for example. Just like I'm not thinking about being educated. I'm not like being like, oh, I'm in school and I'm learning. But it's little things like the fact that the only reason I know that adults have 32 teeth is because of Fairly Odd Parents, where Chip Skylark has the song, and it's just that one line where it's just like, why could I talk to you when I've got 32? And it's just little things like that where it's like, well, now I know that adults have 32 teeth, and that has stayed with me all of my life. I don't remember how to do algebra equations, but I know that we have 32 teeth.
Hell yeah.
Same and same and I actually have like a college algebra course in the fall semester. Pray for me, but like
Oh, good luck.
Oh, it's
but for a lot
been
of my education, especially through art, and an artist lens, I know it's like a lot of okay, but hear me out. A lot of art that I've done or how I improved was actually through YouTube.
Mhm.
Even though I did have a couple of art classes, I did go through to school and actually have a graphic design degree before doing STEM. But a lot or all actually majority of my knowledge when it comes to art have been through social media, been through online, been through YouTube videos, like little snippets on TikTok. That's where my that's where my knowledge came from. So yeah, it just it correlates because like a lot of the knowledge that you'll get is through media. And it's funny that they're trying to censor it, but only in Minecraft. You didn't hear it from me. But yeah.
So within kink spaces, boundary setting is, extremely important. And, we've talked about how problematic the lack of boundaries, in some spaces, and, with some folks can be around kink. But, it's really important within a kink space. And think I've heard many folks, including Kaber, Megan, Sandor, Evie, Lupine, and others, mention that this explicit boundary, this setting, is what makes kink feel particularly safe for them when it's done right. Are you able to comment a bit on the negotiation process around boundaries and how it works?
I feel like Kaber will have a little bit more experience with how it's done correctly because I only have experience of how it was done incorrectly. So I'm going to pass it on to Kaber before putting in my 2 cents.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it depends, I think, on the dynamic that people want. Because we've already talked about like how people can kind of co-opt kink language for negotiations that end up being abusive and unhealthy. But some people will straight up just write out like some people do use contracts. It's not common, but people do use contracts. It can be used negatively, where someone who has no idea what they're getting into or no idea what they're doing, they'll be like, "Here's a contract, sign it." And then a newbie to the scene might be like, "Oh, okay, I don't want to do this." And it's like, "But you signed the contract, so you can't say no." So it can be used in a unhealthy way. But for other people, um, you know, they like the idea of firm rules and conditions as well as stipulations where it's like it's not so much you can't say no, it's that there's agreed upon and enjoyed punishments. So you can say no, um, but it's sort of like, some people want a dynamic where someone tells them what to eat, tells them how to dress, um, sets a structure for them working out every day. And it's just having someone in some degree hold them accountable for being healthier while also in this controlling dynamic. Some people really like the idea of contracts, but that doesn't have to be every dynamic. It can also be, um, you know, it's less used now, but there was like as far as negotiations go, there was the hanky code in the gay community where um, people would wear differently colored hankies in either their front pockets or their back pockets. Um, and the color of that hanky would denote what kink they were interested in partaking in. And then the side that they wore it on denoted what position they wanted to be. So for example, if you wore a yellow hanky, it means that you were into water sports. And the side that you were on would denote whether you wanted to be peed on or you wanted to pee on someone else. Um, so there was that kind of nonverbal flagging and negotiating, like not as explicit as a negotiation, but at least signaling like this is what I would like to do and this is how I would like to do it. And then people who see that could approach you and be like, "Hey, I'm down. We can do it the way that you have flagged." Um, there's also like checklists and sheets that you can find templates for online if you look up like BDSM limit sheet. That they're long. They are long and a little intimidating, but if you don't really know what's out there, it can be very good to sit and think about what you want, because I think a very good aspect of negotiating and boundary setting is knowing what's out there and what do you actually want. And these checklists have a wide list of kinks that it's basically like, you know, are you into impact play? Are you into, but also it breaks it down to like, do you like canes? Do you like paddles? Do you like, you know, floggers? Because not all impact is the same for everybody. And then it scales it from like, I have tried it before. I haven't tried it before. I would like to try it, or this is like a hard limit. It's extensive, but some people, it could just be like a little workshop for yourself to go through these things and be like, I've never tried that and that sounds unpleasant, or I've never tried that and that sounds really interesting. And then from that, you could exchange papers, or you can talk about your papers with a partner you're interested in engaging with and be like, okay, we don't line up on these kinks, but we do line up on these. So we can do just the ones that we line up on, to kind of figure that out. But it's hard. Setting boundaries and negotiating it's something you really got to learn. And I think negotiation and boundaries can also happen a little in like the aftermath, or what it's called aftercare, where after you have done a scene, it's a very good practice to take time afterwards to not only like dress wounds or like ice bruises, or, you know, massage sore muscles, you know, do hugging, kissing, but also talking about the scene that just happened. And just being like, hey, did you like everything? Was everything okay? Was anything not okay? Can we, you know, is there anything that needs to be changed? So also, as much as negotiations and boundary setting up front is very important, things can change, and it's very good to keep talking and keep checking in to kind of adapt and update, because maybe you're like, oh, I used to be really into impact play, and then I was with a partner who, you know, works out extensively, and a previous partner did not work out, and wasn't very strong. So when I said, hit me as hard as you can, it was exactly the level that you'd want to be hit at. And now you have someone who bench presses an extensive amount of weight and has biceps like basketballs. And when they hit you as hard as they can, you're worried about bone fractures. So you have to negotiate and be like, hey, I know I said I was into this, but you're too strong. We got to pull it back.
Absolutely. I think that's such an important point, that it's not just a one and done communication. You know, we're constantly having to reassess and make sure that, you know, this still is something that I'm comfortable with. Such a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like heavy on the talking, because if someone says, and I quote, "Oh, we're just in the talking phase. Just get out." Because that person does not know what they want with you, and is not willing to try, or they think that they can do anything. Like what Cable said, not Cable, Caber said. You should always I keep saying Cable like you're like the time warping guy from Marvel.
I could
But just
rebrand. I could be a new person.
I'm gonna get your name right. I don't care. My speech impairment is not an excuse. Anyway, always talk. Like, be open to talking, because like just because like you guys are doing something does not mean that there should not be a form of communication, and just like, oh, we're just talking or flirting. No, you need to have like hard like conversations on what you both want. And if they are not willing to talk, if they're not willing to communicate on that, and just go to another person for their needs without telling you like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, then they are not the person for you, and they're most likely very concerning.
Mhm.
Even if you have those talks, sometimes the person's not really that good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it, but sometimes they ain't shit. So
Yeah.
you also need to have that conversation, saying like, hey, this is not really doing it for me, even though it's my kink. It might not be like something that you want out of this person, and it's perfectly fine. Like, and if the person, and I know some people do pretend to be into a kink or actually know what they want. But if you won't truly know like what you want unless you try to experiment, and if you do the experiment route, always have a plan, a safe word, and also talk like, hey, I actually really like this. Let's do more of it. Like communication, like just keep talking. Just be a professional yapper. Even if you're nervous, even if you think that the person is gonna be mad, let them be mad. They can be mad on you not liking what they like, and then go to another person. Be
Yeah.
comfortable. Be comfortable with walking away when you need to or when you want to.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Such a good point.
Yeah,
And this kind of
and you
gets
can.
to, sorry.
No, you're good. And you can tell them why, because like I like to be told why like someone is not talking to me anymore, or why that like okay, you flirted with me, but now you're dialing it back without telling me why. Like it can be a simple explanation, or it can be like a very detailed reason why, but it's okay to walk away. As and you can tell the person the reason why and just walk away. No conversation needed.
What were you gonna say, Ty?
I was
Oh,
going to
you gonna say
say
time
that
before I cut you off?
no worries. I was saying, these are really, really important points, and this kind of gets to the next question. It's hard to set boundaries when you don't know what you're doing and you're not constantly communicating. What are some of the most common mistakes that you've seen people make when engaging in, kink spaces?
I see people being uncomfortable and they don't tell anybody. It's a very, very common thing in a lot of people that they're not comfortable with something and they say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. And even though you say multiple times no, and the person say sometimes take the definition of no as an example, as a suggestion, not a whole entire sentence. Sometimes you just need to like put the boundaries, a hard stop, and just leave. A lot of my advice will always be like leave, regardless of like, oh, the person will be hurt or the friend group will be hurt. Your whole entire mental health will be hurt if you don't leave.
Yeah, I really admire. I have a buddy who made a he like the gay scene is very like for the hookup scene for like gay men is very like using Grinder is very like, oh, are you within 15 minutes of me? Let's hook up and meet. Like it's very quick, it's very immediate, and I really admire my buddy who the moment any hookup got weird, just got up and left. I really struggle with setting boundaries because it's a bad habit I'm trying to unlearn. But I would rather get hurt than make a social interaction uncomfortable, or hurt someone's feelings. It's just making social things awkward fills me with such like a visceral discomfort that I'm like, I would rather just kind of, take the hit on this than slow the momentum of this conversation but that's ultimately that ends up with me getting hurt. And I really admire someone who is bold enough to be like, this feels weird and I don't like it. I'm going to pull my pants on and I'm going to walk out the door. I'm done. And just like not tolerate when someone does something that's like, no, you know what? I deserve better than this. I'm here to have a good time and I'm not having a good time. So goodbye. Uh, I really, I really admire that.
I actually do have like a story about, but mainly the one that was in when I was involved with during like my time at Pride. A friend did use Grinder, and the dude was very sus. Turned out to be sus,
Mm,
and we were trying to lose. We were playing to lose him at the club, and then they turned in 180. We did lose him at the end, but I'm here like, dude, it's okay to like be uncomfortable and just leave.
yeah.
Because I'm a very straightforward person. Like I don't really hide anything. I'm very blunt to the point where it's actually became like people's criticisms of me. I'm not gonna
Mm,
lie.
mm,
But if I'm uncomfortable or I feel very frustrated, I'm just gonna tell you straight up like how I feel and why. Just straight up like, hey, you're doing something that's really uncomfortable for me, and here's why. Like it's not you. Okay, it's a bit of you, but me, I'm not rocking with it, and that's perfectly fine. I'm just gonna get out.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people also make, like, when they're first getting started, is I don't think a lot of people know that you can revoke consent. I think
Yeah.
some people think if they agree to something, they have to see it through, or they'll get like, be like, "Oh, you're such a tease. You said we could do this, and now you're backing out." But like the most important, I think, I think, and it took me a bit to learn this, is that consent is an enthusiastic yes. It's not a maybe. It's not a well, okay. It's not like a might as well. It's an enthusiastic yes. It is something that makes you excited. Something that you're like, oh yeah, I really want to do this. It doesn't have to be like like for me, I was like, well, yeah, sure. I'm not like bouncing around like a kid gonna go to Disneyland kind of excited for this activity. And so therefore, like that didn't translate to me. It doesn't have to be um bouncing off the walls excited, but it is something that you like. But also this is I have a again with the autism, I don't have very good interoception. I don't have a very good sense of what I'm feeling and if I am feeling emotions. So it's hard for me to understand um what excitement felt like in a weird way. Um, so like, but like consent is something you would go out of your way to do, something that you would be like, yes, I want to do this thing, and there's no like there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. And at the same time, consent needs to be revocable. So that's why certain dynamics, so like, you know, dating your boss or dating someone who has significant power over you, a really large age gap. Um, there are certain dynamics that are unhealthy because the person can't consent, and just because they don't understand the gravity of what they're engaging with, and or they're not in a position where they can revoke consent without severe consequences. So like if you're if you're dating an underling, there is always going to be that looming over your head of like, if they fuck up, if they piss you off, maybe they don't get a raise or they don't get a promotion, or you fire them, or you transfer them to a department that makes them miserable, or so there's always this difficulty of being authentic and respecting your boundaries because there's this unbalanced power dynamic.
I do agree with that because I also did like learn that a bit of a hard way, and I said once but never again. Personally, for me, and I know it's a very very hard thing to like learn, especially like I'm also that way when it comes to autism, as in like I have very hard time like feeling emotion that is like, okay, is this really enthusiastic or am I enthusiastic? But also if you're nervous, just tell your partner that like, yes, I'm very enthusiastic. I also want to do this. However, I'm very nervous because I also suffer from severe anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can, and also paired with like some of the things that I've been through, it can be harder to like seem enthusiastic without feeling nervous. So
Hmm.
that's where communication also plays in as well. Like this is enthusiastic, yes, and I and
Yeah.
just be like, hey, I'm very nervous.
Yeah, there's nervousness or like being aspec. While I do at times I have engaged in kink, my libido's not the most active. And very frequently, instead of having sex, you know what'd be fun? Playing a video game.
Real,
Real.
There have been
real,
times
real.
where it's just like, yeah, like I could do this, but also why don't I play Pokemon Snap?
Hell yeah.
And
Like I can do this, but I can also
and so
eat
yeah,
fucking
so like
sweets all day and
yeah,
just
or
watch
it's like, yeah,
anime.
I could also go get a pizza, and that
Exactly.
sounds a little bit better.
And that's sort
Yeah.
of where the cake and garlic bread meme came from, essentially. It's like, I could do this,
Yeah.
but
Real.
there are a lot of other things that just seem so much better.
My
Yeah,
libido
but
also is varying as well.
mhm.
Like I always joke like be like, hey, like take me on a couple of dates and I'll think about it. Like Is the food great? Like I would like to get paid. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Listen, hey,
But
that's fair. Some people want to be treated. I saw like a Reddit um story that someone read where this guy was basically like, "Hey, is it weird that I've started like paying my wife for sex?" And the story actually ended up being more wholesome than like intended, where
oh,
it was
that's
basically
cute.
their relationship had kind of stagnated a little, and he started like buying her outfits, and he started like paying for dinner and like taking her out. And it was sort of like a thing where he wanted sex and they weren't having it. So he's like, okay, if you do this for me, I will, I'll let you take my credit card and you can go buy something. And for some people, being pampered, being, like not everyone, but some people like money. They like material goods. They like being given gifts. They like to be spoiled. And for some people that can really kind of spark the flames of like passion for them. And it ended up like he was like it like on paper it seems really weird, but also we're having a lot of sex and I'm really happy. So like there's no shame if you want to get paid, if you want to be pampered or spoiled, and that's what does it for you.
You saying I'm a gold digger? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Listen, get your bag.
Period. But yeah, like if I'm like feeling good and like the person like actually like shows that they care for me, then yeah, I'm more likely to actually be like, let me put out. Let me put out. Like
Mhm.
I'm enthusiastic. I'm in a good mood. But yeah.
But
It
I
all comes
think
down to. Sorry,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying it all comes down to, as you said, enthusiastic consent and what works for both of you. It's not a one-way dynamic. It's something that it's a negotiation. It's what works for both of you and feels good for both of
Mhm.
you is the importance here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also being treated with respect. Cause
Absolutely,
like
Yes.
respect is so
that's so
important.
fucking lovely. Cause like I actually do have a story which does correlate to like more recent events. Like a couple months ago, I was just chilling and I was having that conversation, saying like, "Hey, where are we? Like, what do I stand with you? What is this?" Because like there's a bunch of flirting going on, and they said just talking, and then it went to like, hey, is your sexuality because of so and so trauma, or did it go, or was it before, which I said before, because I knew that I was asexual since high school, and told them like, yes, this is actually a micro label, guys. There's a micro label with people who were traumatized through relationships and became ace. That is, they're valid. Don't get me wrong, they're valid, and it's also a micro label in the Aspec community. However, this person backtracked and basically reiterated to me like, oh, I thought aces came from China, and aces is a broad spectrum. I don't believe it exists.
Ugh.
Honestly, I was stunned. I was flabbergasted. I had 20 minutes until my math test.
Well, so
So
many
I
people
was,
think the A in the acronym is for ally. Like, there's so much ace erasure.
and the thing is, and the funny thing is, there was a lot of aces in his community. There was a lot of
Oh,
aces, so they had no excuse.
that's a
They
shame.
they really had no excuse. So when all of it came out about them, they were like, "God damn, this person! We're just gonna go the other direction. We're not gonna fuck with this person anymore." Bye.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
bye. You're an apo. Bye bye. Like, and that's one of the very few examples. And I do feel like they try to make me think that like asexuality doesn't exist, so they can have a way. Because I was always joking, but like, oh, I'm ace. Like I always have like ace jokes that I always pull out my back pocket. And I think they probably felt some type of way because like I'm here like, haha, I'm going. You gotta have to take me a couple of days and I have to consider it. I'm ace, and they probably took it like as in like a last effort to like get me on their side. That's what
Yeah.
I personally think what
It's
happened.
I mean, I think it's been
But
brought
that's
up a few times on Ty's podcast where like people bring up the idea that people want to be like, oh, you just haven't, I could change you, I could fix you, you just have to, you haven't been with the right person yet, and you're not actually ace. Like, I think some people take it as a challenge.
yeah. Like I haven't been explicitly. Oh, I don't have the word explicitly told those things, but however, in the two situations that I've been in that is more or less more on the sexual terms, one of them, if you know it was not said, it was very apparent in their actions. This person actively said it. So those were the two interactions, which also goes into like I think like seven or like the seventh or the eighth point of like the script. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, unfortunately, like when it comes to asexuals, when it comes to like kink and BDSM, there's a lot of aphobia when it comes to that because they inherently think that like kink or BDSM is inherently sexual when it's not, and it has like a bit of a disconnect and think that like, oh, they're trying, so maybe possibly they may not be ace,
Yeah.
which also brings up into like incorrect like not much communication and overstep of boundaries. So when I say like, hey, if this happens, leave, the door is out there, there's the door, bitch,
Yep.
there's the door. Like, you don't have to take it. You have to
Yeah.
take it. You can tell them why and say like, "Yo, like what you said was high key phobic. Like that actually fucked with me, and I don't fuck with you anymore." Like you can say that. You can leave.
Yeah. I think the overarching is that you can leave. It's okay. If someone is weird, you don't have to stick around. You don't have to like, if you give them the benefit of the doubt, give them like one chance. Like, that's fair. Some people, they biff a social interaction. It's okay to give someone a little bit of grace, but I think you have to establish a limit at some point of like, okay, what what is too far? And then you respect that, and you respect yourself, and you go like, no, it's too frequent. I'm not feeling okay. You don't have to bend over backwards for someone else's comfort if they are making you uncomfortable and they don't seem capable of communicating, or because like if you tell someone, hey, that was weird, don't do that, and they go, oh shit, my bad, and then they never do it again, that's fine. But if you tell someone, hey, that was weird, don't do that, and they're like, oh, but like, oh, I don't know any better, and like they just kind of like waffle and make excuses, then it's like, okay, well, I can't communicate with this person and they're not going to
Yeah.
change, so I'm going to go.
The only reason why I knew I had to go was because they were not listening, because there was a conversation about like someone's like electronic device, and the person was talking over them, saying over and over again their solution without listening to the other person's solution. So or other person's problems. So that's why I knew then they're like, oh, I have to leave. I have to go. I have to pack up. I'm gonna need to put on my hat. Y'all are not gonna see me again. Bye. I left this
Peace.
briefly because yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ty?
I was saying peace, like goodbye.
Oh yeah, just peace, get out of
Peace,
there.
peace out, goodbye. Like I didn't want to make a whole entire scene because like this is basically me. This is my problem that I have with them. So I'm just gonna leave discreetly, like without a sound. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I also like, as far as the back to like any common mistakes people make, just because I think there's just like a couple of things that I wish I had known. Um Namely, or like at least that I had thought of in a different way because I had heard them, but like sometimes people tell you a rule or tell you something that like, oh, this is what you should do. But at least for my brain, if there is no like logical attachment to it, I won't internalize that as a rule or like as a fact of life. So someone might be like, oh, you don't wear flip-flops in the rain. And I'm like, okay, but flip-flops are convenient, and you haven't told me why I don't do that. So I'm gonna keep doing it. And it won't be
You're
until I
so
slip
real.
because my flip-flops are wet that I'm like, oh, that's why you don't do it. So
You're
there's
so real for that. You're
so
so
like
real for that.
There's things where it's like, I think a lot of newbies, the back to like a lot of people are like saying they want someone with no limits, no safe words, total control, and that's not practical. And while it's a nice fantasy, there always needs to be an out. There always needs to be some way to stop a scene or stop play, um, because life is messy. So like, it could literally, it doesn't even have to be like a, oh no, I can't handle this kink. It could literally be like, again, life is messy, and maybe you ate something that didn't agree with you, and your dom is not taking the hint that you need to be untied or you need to stop play before a mess occurs. And so you need like a word, like a safe word to be like, it's not that the kink is bad, it's that I need to go to the bathroom imminently. And you're not understanding when I say, because some people engage in CNC or consensual non-consent, where they want to be able to say no, they want to be able to say stop, but have it continue. And so there needs to be some kind of signal that's like, no, we gotta stop now. Or, maybe you didn't lock your door and your roommate comes in and or like there's just, or you get a phone call from like a family member that's in crisis and it's like, okay, no, we got to stop, because like everyone has a limit. There are always going to be some things that you need to have some kind of out for things to stop, and you should always have safety tools. So for example, if you're doing rope work, you should always have safety shears nearby, um, which usually are like, like dull, like blunt edged, sometimes like medical shears because they don't dull. Um, so they're always kind of good depending on like the thickness of the rope. But because obviously with suspension or rope work, if you tie the knots a little too tight, or you're suspending in a way where it's just cutting off blood pressure in a way that you weren't expecting, like it's not something to panic about, but if you're reckless with it, you can lose limbs from restricted blood supply. And so if you see someone's limb is turning a different color that it shouldn't, it's good to have shears on hand to cut somebody out. So, because instead of having to take the time of undoing all of the knots, it's just like, oh, this is bad. Snip. Okay, you're out. Um,
Yeah,
Similarly, if
you
someone
can
comes to
you can always
visit,
buy like rope. You can always buy the rope back.
yeah. Or I see like choking is very popularized. Even in like people who aren't in the kink community, it's a very, very popularized, like over sexualized, like, oh yeah, every girl needs to be into choking, right? Um, but I think a lot of people don't really know how to do it, and they will push down on the front of the throat and try to actually like compress the trachea and restrict airflow, which is not what you're supposed to do. Breath play is a very intense kink, and something you should be very safe with. But also, you're not actually supposed to, because if you collapse the trachea, you might need medical intervention to open it. So you shouldn't actually be trying to squeeze and crush the throat. It's more about like the pressure and squeezing on the sides of the throat. So it's less about restricting airways and more about like a head rush and pressure. Um, but a lot of people just hear about choking and they're like, oh, okay, so I just need someone to grab my throat and squeeze as hard as they can. And that could lead to your throat collapsing. So you got to be safe with that.
A good point to make. Safety. Please be safe. If
Please
you
be
don't,
safe.
please be safe. And no, and like it's okay to not know what the kink is, but it's also good to like do research beforehand before doing the scene, because someone may be like, oh, I'm really into knife play, and they don't realize that people don't really use actual knives because of how dangerous it is and how you can actually cut an artery and like bleed in like 5 minutes. Please research the kink if you're not in, if you're unfamiliar and the person likes it, so you can know what it is, what the dangers are, and the possibilities, so
Mhm.
you know like that you're well equipped, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're going to an ER like half naked because you didn't take the responsibility or like take the research, take the time to do the research, and now you have like a $300 bill with insurance. So
That's
that's
all
your
I can think of for
PSA.
like newbie advice.
Mhm.
That's
Absolutely.
also same as well.
This is why, you're constantly needing to reassess and renegotiate those boundaries because you never know what's going to happen, what horrible things, you didn't necessarily account for initially. So I think that just really hammers home the need for constant reassessing and communication as well, in addition.
Yeah, because someone could be, for example, really into choking, and then maybe they have a near-death experience where they nearly choke on something, or they go into anaphylaxis, and they've never legitimately choked in their life. They have that experience, and then the next time they engage with it, it just becomes a trauma. It becomes a trigger as opposed to something enjoyable. So then you have to
Hmm.
renegotiate and be like, actually, I used to like this until I almost died, and now it freaks me out, so we got to stop.
No kidding.
For real. Yep. Always like the biggest takeaway for like newbie is just like re like make sure you like reset those boundaries as you go. Like what is your heart stops? What is your like maybe you should slow down, and what is good to go. Communication, always communicate. Please, for the love of God, communicate, because
No,
there's
I
like
think,
this is not just for like BSM, but also for day-to-day life. You should
oh yeah.
always communicate, because there's been times where a lot of situations, a lot of relationships, both platonic and romantic, could have been saved if people just talked,
Mhm.
and be okay to leave when things don't plan out, or like the person is not taking you seriously.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
definite translation of just like it's good to communicate these things in kink, but it is also like it wouldn't hurt to check in with friends more often to be like, hey, even something as benign as like sometimes there's little things that friends can do that they just like it hurts and you don't know how to talk about it, but you don't want to kill their fun. Like have I used to, and it's still around. I have really bad body image issues. And someone else taking a picture of me that I didn't take, and I see it, like candid pictures of me or just selfies that I didn't have control over, would cause me to go into a bit of a depressive spiral. Um, and it's, but like someone else might be doing it because they want to save a memory. They want to like just to be like, oh yeah, me and my friends, like they're doing it out of love. Um, and so there's definitely been times in friendships where I didn't tell someone that I didn't want them to post a picture of me because it made me uncomfortable and I just let them do it. Um, because I didn't want to ruin their fun. But that's like a thing where if you talk frequently enough and you have open communication with your friends, like even platonic boundaries of like, hey, I have to be the one to take selfies because I need to control the angle that I am spectated at. Or please don't take candid pictures of me because I don't like the way I look. Like these are boundaries that you can have with your friends that don't have to be like they're just completely platonic.
Absolutely. And when it comes to obviously romantic, you do need to communicate, but I also do mean communicate on the littlest things as well, because you don't want the little things to stack up and becomes a big resentment,
Mhm.
which is the reason why like me and my partner are not together anymore.
Mm.
That's literally the reason, because of communication. Like I'm able to say because like been there and that already did like the whole entire like weeping sorrow. But that's why I'm very heavy on like you need to communicate. Even as platonic, sexually, romantically, communication is a must. Even in like work standards, you need to communicate. You gotta be like, hey, I can't really do this because of this. Oh, my like knee is acting up. I cannot crouch down at the moment. Can you take this? Communicate. Communication is so very important, but it's the least thought of when it comes to a bunch of interactive relationships.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Communication applies everywhere, no matter the kind of relationship it is, in the setting that it is, communication is key. Not always easy, though. I can certainly relate to,
Oh,
not wanting
absolutely.
to, upset someone. And, I've not brought something up that's really bothered me just because I didn't want to deal with the confrontation. And it's something I've had to work on and I'm still continuing to work on to this day. So I can certainly relate to the struggle that communication can be sometimes, but it is inherently so, so incredibly important.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not gonna say that I'm immune to it, because there's been times where I don't want to have that conversation, but I know for a fact that avoiding it will make it a lot more worse. So there is, it's like you can, like, that's literally the definition of courage. Doing something regardless if you're confident in it or not. You're doing something that you might not even think that you're good enough for, but you actually brought up the courage to actually do it anyway.
Yeah.
So I remember his friend says that everyone has the name of courage because we all got that dog in us. Fuck yeah. We got that dog in us.
Hell yeah.
Definitely gotta embody
Fuck
that dog
yeah.
in me more often.
Real. Like if courage can face off against like cosmic horrors that we technically should not have been watching when we were children and be able to
Oh.
say to save I forgot her name, Marilyn, Maribel, and reluctantly save her husband, you can
Mhm.
do so too.
Mhm. I also
So
think that like people. Oh, sorry, Hitai.
I was just gonna say that we've got about 2 minutes until the next ad, so we will need
Or we could
to
take ad
wrap
break.
this topic up because I can't snooze the ads anymore, unfortunately.
Mhm.
No! You also subscribe to Ty right now. Subscribe to him right now. If you subscribe, you can get all the podcasts without any ads. Do it,
Right?
do it, do it, do it, do it,
That's true.
do
That's true.
it.
Unbroken access to our riveting conversations.
Exactly.
Real.
uh,
I think, yeah, we can. I can talk a little bit more if you want it to like reach that 2 minute mark, or we could take our break
sure, yeah,
now.
we can like wrap up the last thoughts here, and then we'll take one more break, and we've got a couple last things we will talk about, and then that should bring us to the end, I think.
Okay.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I was gonna say like with with the consent in that regard, there's so many ways that people don't think about talking about consent where it's like some people are touch adverse and it's nice to ask and respect if someone does or doesn't want to be hugged or doesn't want to be sent a surprise or like it's weird how many people don't realize you need consent to share someone's nudes um and they'll just share it with their friends like they'll receive a nude from like someone they're dating and then they'll share it with a bunch of their friends and that's something you need consent for so even outside of a kink sphere like having a better understanding of communication and consent translates to so much outside of the sphere of kink as well.
Hear
And
you.
also, like, sometimes people can't consent verbally, whether they're not in a position to say yes or no, because you might ask them in front of others, or you beg them, or like they say no and you keep pushing. Um, so, like, also the understanding that some positions sometimes you can't get a sincere thing of consent or some people you could say like are you okay and they'll just be programmed to be like yeah I'm fine and you kind of have to work around that and learn like okay they're gonna lie because they're on autopilot so you have to get creative and be like okay say purple if you're okay or if you're in a scene or dynamic being like here is an object hold it in your hand and if you are not okay let go of it so you kind of have to sometimes get creative with knowing and getting like enthusiastic communication not enthusiastic but authentic communication with someone.
Absolutely. Such a good point. And, that just really comes back to, authentic, explicit, enthusiastic consent is so important around everything that we do. Thank you so much for being here, Oni. It's been lovely having you participate with us today. At this point, we will jump on one more ad break and we'll be back in 3 or 4 minutes. So I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, folks. Got a couple more things to chat about. Thanks for sticking around through the ad break. You know, it's helpful to step away every hour or so and take a break. So
Yeah,
I've
digest
been
what we're talking
I've
about.
I've been here the whole entire time. What are you talking about? In the walls. I'm in the goddamn walls.
Rude.
I've been here the whole time.
So the next question that I have here is, suggestions on how we can modify kink to be more friendly for Aspec individuals. Can you think of any ways that we can modify, kink or kink spaces to be more Aspec friendly?
That's actually a very interesting question because a lot of my experiences with kink has been through a more sexual lens. Again, I would say something like I said before, like rope play or more or less rope binding is also an art form with shibari, and it doesn't have like a lot or any sexual undertones. So that can be something that aces don't really want to deal with, like the sexual part of kink or like the sexual implications of kink. They can do that. There's also role playing, because there's a lot of role playing when it comes to kink, both in a sexual and a more non-sexual lens. So that could also be something that can be modified.
Mm-hmm. I
Mm.
think it depends on like the person as well, what kind of alterations they might need. Uh, because obviously, like being aspec doesn't necessarily mean you want none of a certain thing. Um, but it could range from, maybe someone likes kissing or touching, but they don't like the penetrative part of things. So altering things to only involve certain kinds of intimacy, or adding a degree of separation where it's like, people could wear gloves, or, maybe some people only like voices, and that's the only thing that really does it for them. So they listen to like ASMR and voice actors. So like they could do kink over the phone. Phone sex was very popular for a long time. Or
No,
Hmm?
no, you calling me out with the voices thing.
uh, people could do it through video calls. Or some people, maybe they don't want to engage in sex, but they might want to watch their partner do it and egg them on. Um, so maybe, people joke a lot about, the person in the cuck chair.
The hotel
But
cut chair.
yeah, the hotel cuck chair. But maybe that's a position someone, I mean, obviously people who engage in cuckolding, they want that. But for some, it could be a degradation thing. For some, it could be a power thing where they just want to sit there and be like, I'm going to tell you two what to do. I don't want to be involved. I just want to tell you what to do and you have fun. That could be a change up for some people. Um, or like, I also think modifications can be made of deviating out of monogamy. Because I think, obviously, if you don't have a very high libido, or you don't want certain aspects of a relationship, whether you don't want the romantic part or you don't want the sexual part, um, you can dabble in polyamory where you get the parts of a relationship that you want and enjoy from your partner, and then they seek out the other aspects that maybe you don't want to engage with other partners. So if you're aromantic, then they can seek out the romance and the intimacy from that with someone else. And you could, or vice versa, you want the romance, but they can uh, get all the sexual gratification that they want from other people.
Really good point, because often, when we think Aspec or Aspec, we think ace spec, but not all Aspecs are ace. We often forget about, allosexual aromantics. And so for them, maybe they're looking for the sexual aspect, but they may not want, the romantic parts of it. So, that's an interesting angle that we need to consider as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree because like oh there's a lot of there's a lot of knowledge and that's or little of when it comes to asexual like allo romantics, but not the other way around. And there's a lot of stigmatism when it comes to the allosexual aromantics, either being called shallow, a whore, or just someone who just wanted to use people for sex, which
Yeah.
there are none of those things. It's just implications of people who, or it's just like a very societal. We live in a society,
Society.
a society, um, a society full of people who even though they prioritize sex, they also people prioritize sex along with romance, like it's a one-to-one, it's like a hand-in-hand thing when it's clearly not.
Yeah. Like it can overlap, but I don't always think that romance leads to sex or sex leads to romance. And I mean, I'm also hetero ace. I don't experience attraction in those regards at all. But like there are ways in which, similarly, there are people who are demisexual, right? Where maybe they
Ooh.
want to engage in those things, but they need a connection with someone first. So for some people, a lot of the kink scene involves hookup culture, where it's, especially because a lot of kinks are uncomfortable or taboo. So it's difficult to date and connect with someone first and then go, hey, by the way, I have this kink because you've invested all this time. And then they might be like, ooh, bye. So I think a lot of kink engagement is very quick. It is you meet someone for the first time and you engage, and that doesn't really jive the best with demisexuals who need more of a slower emotional connection first. Um, so there's also alterations you can make of instead of engaging in a hookup culture is going to kink clubs so that you can actually talk to people and connect first and ease yourself into it if you are lucky enough to have those in your community, or going into online forums, or just openly talking about kink so that you can make friends and connections first and have that slower draw of, okay, these people have similar things to me, and I am growing to get attracted to this friend I met at a kink event. Um, and now I can engage.
I'd say demisexual is that is basically the best case scenario.
Really good point. Absolutely. Such a broad umbrella. What, no one A spec is the same as the next A spec. So, that's why as Caber mentioned, there's no one way to make it more friendly for all A specs. It depends on the particular person. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think when people talk about BDSM, it's a very niche caricature of someone with a whip who's leather clad and
The
that
50
is just
Shades.
yeah,
Like
there's
I
mm,
will admit that 50 Shades of Grey, as a whole, did so badly for the BDSM
it did so
community.
bad.
It's
It did
so
so bad.
bad. Like
It's very abusive. It's very bad.
it's so bad. It's like damn, daddy down with the
Yep. And there are so many different ways, there's so many different things that people like, and so many different ways to engage with them that people don't think. I think, especially people who just have a very surface level understanding, think okay, I gotta go find someone who will beat me up. And that's what you do if you're into kink. But it's again, there are, puppy meetups where it's literally just you put on a mask and you just, there's a little pen set up and you just kind of crawl around on the floor with a bunch of other people and you bark and you get pet, and that's literally all it is. Or some people are into being horses and they have to engage in some degree of dressage where it's not that I mean, they can, but it's not that they are stimulated sexually. It might just be that they're wearing a leather hood and hooves and they just get to trot around and like get told that they're pretty. Um, or it could be you could sign up for like a voyeur scene where you don't want to engage. You could literally just people want to be watched and act like I'm in public. I'm doing something naughty and someone could see me. You could literally sign up to just be like, I'm gonna be a guy down the street and I'm gonna stand here. But I'm giving you the fantasy and illusion like I might see you having sex. Um, I mean, I don't think they would block a whole street for that, but I know sometimes like people might rent a warehouse or they might, rent like a train car set. Um, and so like you could even so much as just be like, I just want to kind of be peripheral to this and get my bearings. There's so many different ways to engage.
Like there's no right or wrong way to like express kink as long as you're doing it safely.
Yeah. I think I hear a lot the tagline of like safe, sane, and consensual is a repeated um kind of tagline for the that heard from a lot of kink educators of just like, you want to be sane, it has to be consensual, and like some people are into things or might ask for things that are not safe. And that doesn't necessarily mean like it's not necessarily like I know there's like a, oh, don't kink shame me thing. But I think some people engage in kink in a way that is self-harm. And it is also okay to not engage in that or to redirect into a way that is safe. So if you are engaging in, some people have a thing for needles. And some people might like the idea of like contamination and the needle being dirty. That doesn't mean that you inject someone with a dirty needle. As much as they might like it, you don't want to give someone sepsis. So there is
Absolutely.
levels of safety, and in addition, like some people engage in kink and they enjoy getting hurt and they enjoy harm being done to them, but it's not necessarily in a self-harm way. But there are some people who use it the same way that someone would inflict wounds on themselves in a very like depressed and self-hating way, or the same way someone would restrict their eating. Some people might engage in self-destructive kink habits.
And also, I would like to like emphasize because like a lot of things, or a lot of things that are talked about are more talked about in like a more submissive sense, when it goes both ways for both dom and sub,
Hmm.
and switch and vice versa. Like a lot of things, even though there's a lot of cases where something was not safe and it's usually the sub, but no one talks about like it was not safe for the dom. Like
Hmm.
sometimes the dom gets their boundaries crossed, or communication is not really done by the sub, and now the doms feel like, oh dang, I'm not responsible for that. There's a sense of like responsible guilt when it comes to like more or less the dom type sense.
Yeah, it's like it's not terribly common for people to realize that like aftercare also involves the dom, or also like it's not just like I think the trope is like, oh, you have to like, you've just spent however long beating up the submissive or doing something very intense to the submissive, so now you have to cuddle them and pet them and like bring them down from that space and comfort them, but at the same time the dom also kind of needs that comfort, that reassurance, that like um that aftercare as well. Even if it's like, cuz not all, again, people have a very narrow view of like a very commanding, dominating dom and like a very like agreeable submissive sub. But there are levels to that, right? There are different kinds of doms where they are, there's some that are like a service top. who they literally just want to be told, they want to be in the lead, they want to provide, they want to be the giver, but they want to be told what to do. And in that same vein, there are power bottoms who want to bark orders, but they want to receive. Or there is things called people called brats, where
Mhm.
they are submissives, but they want to fight. You know, they want to break rules, they want to say no, they want to be like, oh, what are you going to do about it? You know, and not everyone is a brat tamer, which is what the kind of dom position for that would be someone who kind of corrals a brat. Not everyone's a brat tamer, and it can be very frustrating or very difficult to deal with that conflict where you, if someone like if a dom tells a brat what to do, and maybe they start being insulting. You know, maybe they're like, "Oh, you're not a big enough man to tell me what to do," or like if they start getting hurtful, that might be something that you need to get aftercare about. Where it's like, "Hey, don't insult my appearance when I am engaging with you," or things like that.
Yeah, and that's where again communication
Yeah.
goes into that. I'm just gonna say it like this: communication, because it plays so heavily in literally everything we do.
Hmm.
Hmm.
One word,
Hmm.
if I could say, coming from this podcast, and I think so many others, is communication is key.
Hmm.
Yep.
Communication and boundaries
Yeah,
and knowing when to leave.
exactly.
Hmm.
Communication. Sorry.
If we put it in a song, it'll be easier to remember.
Real. I should
Mood.
be like Bowie. What is his name? Birmingham or something like that. I should just do a
Bo
song.
Burnham.
Songs. Yeah, I think that's his name. And just do like
Hmm.
the communication. You need
Yep.
it. But yeah, and there's also like I'm not saying there's switch eraser, but like as someone who identifies as a switch, that also jokingly, by the way, be, gets called a bottom. There's a lot of like switches that like people don't believe that they're a switch and think that they're
Oh.
either like a bottom or a top, which they are. They can just interchange.
Yeah, I've seen so many people make jokes where someone's like, "Oh, I'm a switch." They're like, "Okay, so you're a bottom," and they'll immediately shut it down when like it's like usually it's like a comedian and they're making a joke, but like
Yeah.
it's frequent enough that it really seems like a pervasive idea that like most people saying that they're switches are just like, and like some people do. I'm sure some
Mhm.
people, I've had friends in situations where they were told they've either said that they were a switch because they wanted to engage with someone and they were just kind of hoping, like they weren't excited about it, but they were willing to do a position that they weren't the most enthusiastic about in the expectation the other person was also a switch so that they could receive some of the time. So they're like, okay, I'm a bottom, but I will top sometimes if it means you will top me sometimes. So there are some times where people will say they're a switch and it's not the most enthusiastic. Um, but I think there is
Yeah.
definitely a big thought of people just being like, no, if you're a switch, you're just a bottom who doesn't want to admit it. Because there is a degree of like almost misogyny when it comes to
Mhm.
those roles where it's like, and been, I've done this before where like there's a pervasive culture of like making jokes of like calling someone a bottom like a joking insult. And, but like being called a dom is such a compliment. And it's an unintentional way that I think misogyny kind of worms its way into language, where
Yeah.
this idea of like the masculine dominating role is like very complimentary, and being the submissive role is so embarrassing and humiliating. So you can use it to like make fun of someone.
Yeah. Like language be whack.
Hmm.
And also like personally for me is like it's like okay, how much of a top or bottom are you? And like basically like I'm flexible enough. Like Like I don't mind being a top or a bottom, but it heavily like reflects on like how the person is. Like, are they a bottom? Okay, you're a bottom, so like I'm more or less gonna be acting like more or less like a top. Or if someone's more or less like more dominant or a top, then I'm more or less more likely to be like a bottom, basically. That's basically how my switchness works.
Yeah. Just kind of responding to doing what the other person, like reflecting the other person's energy.
Yeah, wouldn't that mean I'm a service switch then? Like an SS?
Maybe.
But yeah. Stitchies.
I've learned so much from this podcast because I don't have much experience at all in kink, so just listening the last couple hours has been so enlightening and so educational for me. So I want to thank you so much, both of you, for jumping on the podcast with me today, and for everybody that's participated with us today as well.
I'm so glad you did this episode.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we
I
have one
want to talk
more.
about this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We
I
have
want
one
to talk
more.
about things like these like all the time, but this is not a topic that many people want to talk about, so I'm just constantly buzzing like someone please bring up my special interest so I can talk about it.
absolutely.
For me, like I have a lot of knowledge on like certain topics. So like whenever I say like, hey, I can actually do this topic, it usually means that like, hey, I have experience and actual knowledge about this. Like I will never go into like a thing and be like, hey, I know something when I actually don't.
Mhm.
And there's also like number 7, which I noticed you didn't do.
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, did you?
no, we haven't talked about it
Oh, okay.
as of yet.
I think
Absolutely not.
I
So
think I think that's the last
yeah,
question that we have. Yeah. We're near
so
the end.
yeah,
I
the
love you
last
guys.
question. Absolutely, the last question is, what can we learn about our, I will say, asexuality, or more broadly, our aspec identity from kink spaces?
I think like what we can learn is like more or less where our boundaries are when it not only comes to like kinks, but also when it comes to like people as well. And it makes us learn like, okay, I'm not my libido is not really there, or okay, this doesn't really seem like anything sexually. However, non-sexually or like only sensually, yeah, I can rock with this. More or less you're learning more about yourself and how like your asexuality works in those spaces.
Really good point. Absolutely. Any
I feel
thoughts,
like
Caber?
I yeah, I think I've learned I don't know, I think I've learned a lot about being a spec through kink spaces. And through like engaging in kink. Like the like tangible difference between wanting to do an activity and wanting to do an activity with someone specific, like through engaging in kink was also around the time that I came to the revelation that I was Arrow Ace. Um, and the like difference between attraction and just being horny. Um, because I think that they are very, very different. Where one of the experiences that I had that also helped, like it was difficult for me to realize I was Arrow Ace, was because it was like, well, no, I'm not. I don't not want sex. It's not. I don't not want a relationship, sort of. But like, it's the thing where, like you said at the beginning with the sensual attraction, it's a very sensory experience for me. Of I enjoy. Physical touch is one of my biggest love languages. So like I enjoy hugging people. I enjoy cuddling and like physical intimacy, and like I don't mind kissing. Kissing can be fun, but I also could get bored of it in the middle of doing it. Um and it's more about getting that sensory experience with someone that I trust and someone I care about, because I'm uh and less about attraction. Like And that sounds bad because people are like, "What? You're not attracted to me?" And it's like, no, you look nice, you look beautiful. I'm just not experiencing like heart fluttering and face flushing and fireworks, and I'm not experiencing the symptoms of attraction. You're nice to look at, and I trust you, and I want to engage in this with you. But like, for me, engaging in those behaviors is largely a sensory experience, and I didn't clock that until I engaged in that more. Um, as well as
Or
like, oh no, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You were finishing up and I ruined it.
No, it's okay. I also think like I learned a lot about like polyamory, that relationships don't have to be monogamous. That I think there's a big pressure for people, especially in monogamous relationships, that your one partner has to be able to satisfy every single one of your desires. And you've locked in on this one person. Whereas in the kink community, it's more normalized to be like, it's an unrealistic or unhealthy, possibly expectation to expect that every facet of your desires is going to line up with the person that you're with. And it is far more normalized to be like, you know, it's not that that person isn't enough. It's that there are aspects of your life that you want to, that you enjoy, that you want to engage with. And it's not that you're going to leave this other person. It's just that you would like to, in a non-sexual regard, it's sort of like if you love going to water parks, right? And your partner hates going to water parks. In theory, sure, you don't ever have to go to a water park again, but it's kind of a bummer. It kind of sucks to not engage with a part of yourself that makes you very, very happy. Um, and in that similar translation, it's like, could you live your life without this kink? Sure, possibly. Um, but it's a bummer when you could be engaging in something that makes you really happy. Or like the way, all the different ways that people want to be connected with, I learned through kink, because it's like I said before, it's obvious, it's very oversimplified. Um, but like some people are into some things I never would have, until it was articulated to me, I would have never thought about, where, some people just, they get off to being complimented. People have a praise kink where they're just like, tell me that I'm good, and they love that, and that's all you got to do. Some people want to be told how to dress, what to eat, like they want that control. Or some people want to be neglected, they want to be ignored, and that has really opened my eyes to like, because I'm a big time people pleaser, and it's like, oh, if someone wants something, I have to provide it for them so that they don't leave me. Some people want to be ignored. They want to message you and get nothing back. That does it for them. And that's really interesting to contextualize to the diversity of like relationships that you can have with people. But bup, 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 bup. My brain. Oh, it's stopping. Oh, the ADHD is taking over.
Oh, it's happening to you too. No.
But I guess just like through asexuality, I think it's, in summarizing that, validating that relationships outside of the very niche cookie cutter relationship that I've been taught um, can happen. Because I think some people just kind of settle for what they get. They're like, oh, well, this is the first time that someone's been nice to me, or this is the first time I've met someone who's into the things that I'm into, so I'm going to lock in with them. Um, but through kink, I've kind of understood and validated that like there's so many people in this world, and they're into so many different things. Like there's billions of people in this planet. It is impossible that there is not more than one person who will suit you, who will mesh with you. There's too many people. It's just not possible that you are so strange and so eclectic that only one person in this world vibes with you, and therefore you have to stifle yourself or be something that you're not in order to keep them by your side, when there is so many different ways to have relationships with people. And that's really validated my openness with being Arrow Ace, because rather than being like, oh, you're going to be alone forever and no one's ever going to want to be with you or like you because you don't want sex or romance, the openness of like, yeah, some people don't like it. Some people engage with it in a very specific way, and that's chill and that's okay and it's normal.
There's so many
For
other
me,
ways.
like, yeah, there's so many other ways. For me, like, I also through relationships and also through like kink, I also realized like I'm polyamorous as well. Because like I'm here like, okay, I'm a bit different, and I also noticed that like I'm not gonna be like satisfactory, or like I'm not gonna be satisfied with like just one person. Like there's different needs that need to be met, and sometimes one person is not gonna be need to be met. It doesn't mean that the person is subpar. It does not mean the person is awful. It just means that like you just have different facets of yourself that basically one person will not work for. And also for me, like it was during high school when like I didn't have like a lot of like confidence in personally myself, because I personally thought that I would be like alone because I was like demisexual. And I was also like, this was before I realized I was non-binary. I was like, if I was non-binary, people will never love me like that, like, which I've been
Mhm.
proven wrong multiple times. I was proven wrong. And and basically like ADHD words. I can't have words right now. like like the my intellect is going down. Um but also like through um kink and BDSM, I also learned obviously communication, boundaries, and also learning like when to leave, especially during my first relationship. I did not leave when I needed to, and that caused me a lot of grief that I still sometimes feel to this day. I know it's not my fault. It was never my fault. However, it's not gonna stop my brain from thinking like, dang, you really let that happen, bro. Take that out. But like also like take it as like a means to like learn and grow with yourself, because I definitely did. And like it also like changes your perspective as well. Um like always be open to change your perspective regardless, but it did like make me change my perspective on like relationships, not only in like romantic or a sexual sense, but also platonic as well.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts?
In prayers.
No, before we wrap up here, we are hitting the 3 hour mark at this point. It's been
That
a
is
lovely chat.
true.
I
Like,
think I don't know. I think I said everything that
Hmm.
I wanted to talk about.
same here. Like, it's been really nice talking to you, Kaber. Like, I don't think we've met before, but it was really nice talking with you.
It was nice talking
Absolutely.
with you too. I
Yeah.
watched your episode with Ty. And so when Ty mentioned doing this episode and you were like, "Oh, I want to be part of that." Um, it was good to hear that we could actually like get you on this,
Hmm.
because originally it was like, "Oh, no one else can make it, so it's just going to be me and Ty." And then Ty told me like, "Oh no, Bunny's going to be able to join." I'm like, "Yes." I was hoping that they would be able to
Aw.
hop in.
Like, I was hoping to. I was like, I want to be in the podcast, but I also want other people to have like their own time to shine in the podcast. It cannot just be me and another person. Like, like I can be free, but I can be the last person, the bottom pick of the barrel, as long as other people that are new are able to actually be on the podcast. It cannot just be me.
I do,
I think
I
it's
really
good.
appreciate that as well, because I have been trying to, open it up and be like, hey, if you haven't been on the podcast, I'd love to have you join. I really want to make this an open discussion for as many folks and get as many different perspectives as we possibly can, because the Aspec community as a whole is very diverse and very broad, and the more viewpoints and the more perspectives we can get, the better we can understand the diversity within.
Absolutely. And for me to not be the youngest person in the podcast anymore. Like
Note.
I'm the baby. I'm the baby of the group and everyone's like, "You're a baby." I was like, I know.
I don't think you are
Someone
the youngest,
someone
though. I think there may have been one or two
Yay!
people that might have been a tiny bit younger than you on the podcast.
Let's go. I'm not the youngest anymore. Get more younger views. Because I'm obviously like I'm perfectly fine with like sharing my birth year. I am born 2001, so like the fact that like there's finally people that are born after 2001 that is here. I'm not the only one. Yay!
It's a weird experience because throughout my life, I've always been the youngest person in any friend group that I've been in,
Same.
by a significant portion. So I'm so used to being like the baby of a group, and now at this age and engaging with um with the streaming, there's so many people that are younger than me that I'm like, oh, this is fucking weird. This is weird. People aren't like 5 to 7 years older than me anymore. I am the elder. What the fuck?
Yeah, that sometimes I have like that feeling. I remember when I was doing like my temp, I was the oldest, usually on shift. I was like, this is weird being the oldest. Like this is so weird. Because even during streaming everything, I'm usually the youngest, despite being the eldest sibling for my family. Yeah. So like it's very weird to feel old. It's like, oh, I'm old, I'm aging. Oh, I need my cane.
The passage of time.
The patches of
Also,
time.
you can't say that to the people who are older than you. I have people in my chat be like, "Oh, I'm 22 and I'm already getting old." And I'm like, "You are causing psychic damage to my friends who are 35 and older.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them in my
Mm-hmm.
chat, and you are causing damage."
Look, just before I turned 24, hi, my birthday's in July, it's July 8th. When I almost turned 24, my knee injury from when I was 9 years old decided to act up, be like, hi, I'm here again. What the fuck do you mean you're here again?
Well,
Oh
guess what?
no.
It gets way worse. It'll start happening more and more, unfortunately.
No!
No, don't scare them. You're invincible. You'll never die.
I was so as part of the summer school, we were going up to like the 5th floor of the building we were in, and my knees started to really ache by the 3rd day. I was like, really? It's only 5 floors.
Oh.
Why?
No.
No. No. Oh
So
my
I
God.
definitely feel that.
I haven't experienced it yet. But I also haven't hit the 30 flirty and thriving. People have said like once you hit 30, that's when your knees go, and I'm like, I
Yep.
haven't hit it yet.
My
Yep.
knees
Is it just like my
went.
birth?
My
Like my
knees
birthday's
went.
gonna hit, and I'm just gonna be like, oh no,
Bro, my
I'm
knees
made of
went.
bones.
So what you're telling me that my knees went like 6 years before that happened?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, they're overachievers.
Fuck, bro. I'm cooked.
Rip.
I'm so cooked. My God.
Thank you, though, Ty, for
Yeah, it
Thank
was
you,
a
Ty.
really
talking with
awesome
us.
discussion. Thank you again. And thank you for everybody for participating and chatting and sharing your experiences. Thank you so much again. It's a lot of fun. Next episode, we'll look at the intersection of agender identity and Aspec identities, because there is a huge overlap. I think I would say over 90% of the agender folks I know are also Aspec in some way or another.
Hi,
And
it's me.
Stares at this
It's
very
me.
they
I'm
them
the
podcast.
gender.
many of the agender folks I know are AAA batteries, so agender, arrow, and ace. So we're gonna chat about that in August. So if you're interested, please let me know.
Please,
should be-
I don't want, I want people to actually be in the podcast because I'm also a triple A battery. Put a couple A's in there for ADHD, for autism
Yeah.
and anxiety, and you got
Mhm.
ah.
Absolutely. So August, we'll be chatting about agender identity and its intersection with the Aspec community.